Today I have my November wrap up to share with you. This is going to be very quick because I have done really detailed thoughts as I finish each book in my weekly vlogs. So those will all be linked below, along with I will list the books in numbers, and then for the vlogs, which books are in which vlogs. Hopefully that helps you a bit if you want to dig a little bit more to find out my full thoughts on these books. Hi, my name is Jeanette, and I want to thank you for joining me on the channel Jane Reads. So today I have 14 books to recap for you. In the month of November, I read 14 books, which was a total of 3,739 pages. My books were an average of 300 pages. I read quite a few novellas this month. I reread 4 books. 2 of my books were completely physical. 6 of them were ebooks. 1 was on audio completely, and 5 of them I switched between audio and physical or ebook format. I think mainly physical, but I'm not sure. Okay. Overall, my average star rating was 3.9 for the month. So what books did I actually read? Let's talk about them. So I have my reading journal here where I've written down my favorite quotes from them. And so I will share those quotes as I talk about the book. This is going to be very brief because, as I said, I have been filming weekly vlogs. So I talk about what I'm reading during that, give thoughts when I start the book, kind of halfway through the book, give or take. And when I finish the book, my overall thoughts. So those videos will be linked below with descriptions to tell you which books are in which vlogs. Okay, so the very first book was A Run at Love by Toni Shiloh. This is a contemporary romance book. It is book 2 in a series. I did not write the series name down. Oops. Basically, this one is set in Kentucky, and we are following 2 lifelong best friends who have feelings for each other and are kind of nervous about sharing their feelings because what if the other one doesn't feel the same way as them? Then we have kind of digging into past because the main female character is a little bit different than everybody around her due to being adopted. And does her race make her different than everybody else? So there's a little bit of mystery going on there along with what is happening at the farm of her parents. And so she is trying to get a horse ready to compete in the Kentucky Derby. So this is very horse filled. I really enjoyed this one because of that. I love Kentucky. I love horses. So this just felt right for me. And I gave this book 4 stars. Then we've got Midnight on the Scottish Shore by Sarah Sundin. This one is historical fiction set in Scotland in 1941 is when it starts. Starts in the Netherlands. We are following Celia, who is trying to get out of the Netherlands, get over to England for safety. She ends up in Scotland and ends up working for somebody and doesn't really know who she's supposed to be trusting because she trusted somebody in the Netherlands and then now she's here and what's going on. I will say this was not my favorite Sarah Sundin book. I only gave this one 3 stars. I really struggled to follow the story and stay connected with the characters. I did really like the guy character in this one whose name is Lachlan. I do have a quote to share from it though, and I really liked this. It is good to acknowledge our faith. If we never see ourselves as wretched sinners, the word is not faith. Let's try that again. It is good to acknowledge our faults. If we never see ourselves as wretched sinners, we never see the need for God's mercy. So yeah, there is faith talk in this one, and it is enjoyable. I really liked the characters. I just struggled with the war aspect storyline and following because of all the kind of code. Is it code breaking? Kind of writing coded messages, writing misleaded messages. Like, I just struggled a little bit with that aspect of it. But with this book, I have now read Sarah Sundin 2.0 until her new release comes out in 2026. So that was exciting. Then I read the new release, Hearts in Circulation. This is book 2 of the Checking Out Love series. It is by Sarah Monzon. This is a contemporary romance, and it is set in Tennessee. And we are following Haley, a librarian who is being tasked with a bookmobile job. She has to go out to the community of Turkey Grove with this new bookmobile that's not really new. So it breaks down on her first trip out. She meets Levi, who is a mechanic, and the two of them kind of don't hit it off at first, but then she ends up staying at his place due to the broken down bookmobile. And I did not enjoy the two of them together. Some of the scenes just felt like too much for me. There was one scene in particular that really rubbed me the wrong way, and I just did not find it enjoyable. I gave this book 3 stars, and I don't know if I will be continuing the series. I'm not a huge rom-com person to begin with, and I don't know. There was just something about it that just rubbed me. Well, something about it. I know, like, there was that scene that just really bothered me. Okay, then I went to a reread, and that was Hard on the Line by Karen Witemeyer. This is book 2 of the Ladies of Harper Station series. I don't think you have to read book 1 to read this one. I didn't when I read it the first time. I have read book 1 quite a while since, so I did not reread it before I read this one. But book 1 really tells you about the town of Harper Station. Is that what it's called? Yes, Harper Station. And so it just gets you know more about the town, but I think this book itself gives you enough recap to clue in if you haven't read it. This was a 5-star read for me the first time, and it was a 5-star read again for me. We are following Grace and Amos, who meet over the telegraph line and start up a friendship. When Amos finds out that Grace might be in trouble, he comes running to town to try to help her. But he is a man arriving in a town full of women, and they do not trust men. There is one man that lives in the town. Everybody else, like, they don't trust any of them. And so is Amos the one that's out for Grace, that like is threatening Grace, or not? So it kind of a rocky start at the beginning, but I just love the way this grew. And Amos is not your typical hero. He is much more bookish, wears glasses, prefers to ride a bike rather than a horse. And just the way that he ends up saving Grace, or kind of being the hero of the story, he just had my heart. I just really love this book. And I have 2 quotes to share for you from this one. One is, "No man is perfect, but if he loves you and respects you and treats you with kindness, the flaws fade away." And then, "Odds didn't matter when God fought at one's side." Okay, so then my next book was also a reread and also a book 2 of a series. That was Falling for You by Becky Wade. This is book 2 of the Bradford Sisters series. This time we are following Willow, who is the oldest sister. I had to think about that for a second. Who is the older sister. She is a model, but she's currently on a sabbatical looking after her mother's B&B while her mother and father are away. And she reconnects with her ex-boyfriend, who was a football player, is now a retired football player. And we find out over the course of the story what caused their breakup in the first place. And I really liked Willow and the heart that she had for people. This is a contemporary romance, and it is filled with romance, but there's also a bit of a mystery going on when Corbin, who is the football player, his niece, comes to Willow asking for help to try to figure out what happened in the past as like a part of a family mystery for the niece's family. So I really liked the way it kind of tied everything in, and you really got to know the various characters. And so a quote I have to share for you from this one. Oh, I should say I gave this 4.5 stars. And just because God started you on one path doesn't mean he intended to keep you on that path all your life. Okay, and then the next book is also a reread. And that is The Esther Paradigm by Sarah Monzon. This is another contemporary romance. And we are following Hannah, who is a missionary's daughter who has been off in the States for school. She now returns back to this country where her parents are missionaries. It's in the 1040 parallel, 1020 parallel. Wow, I didn't write that down. And then we are following Karim, who is the leader of his people and who is a Muslim. So it is a marriage of convenience story between the two of them who were childhood friends. One is a Christian, the other is a Muslim. How will this work? And why does it work? I really liked Karim and how caring he was for Hannah, and how like nervous Hannah was, but then like kind of tried to do her best and share her faith without like being pushy and trying to convert. The only thing there was a couple things I did not like about this story is I don't like the idea of a Christian and a Muslim marrying in the first place, especially when that agreement happens without seeking prayer first, and when Hannah's parents weren't on board for it because you're not supposed to be unequally yoked, especially when she'd agreed not to try to convert him. The second part of the story that I didn't like, I don't like the way it ends. It hints towards something with Karim converting, but we don't actually see that happen. So does it really happen? Like, I'm just not a big fan of the ending, but I still gave this 4 stars because I just really enjoyed this relationship. And we do see the characters grow and learn to depend on each other. And Karim stands up for Hannah. And when like women are kind of pushed aside in their society or religion. So yeah, I just did enjoy that. But I also have a quote to share from this one, and that is, "To be faithful in the big, one must be faithful with the small. One choice at a time, moment by moment. The surrender of will. It was the only way God could use any of us." Okay, and then the next one is The Cryptographer's Dilemma by Johnnie Alexander. This is book 1 of the Heroines of World War II series. So this is set in World War II. And we are following Eloise and Philip. So Eloise gets recruited by the FBI to figure out some letters about dolls. Are they actually messages to the Japanese, or are they just letters about dolls? Philip works for the FBI, so Johnnie's the author. Eloise is paired with Philip to seek out the letter writers and research this. So there's a lot of travel. It starts out in Washington, but they travel to multiple states and towns. Well, towns and states in this book, and it's only 250-ish pages, but I was so connected. Like, I really was invested in this story. I gave it 4 stars, and I highly recommend it. Okay, and then my favorite read of the month, and that was The Women of Oak Ridge by Michelle Shocklee. So I gave this book 5 stars. It is a dual timeline historical. So we are following Laurel in the 1979 timeline, and she is the niece of Maybelle, who we learn about in the 1944 timeline. And Laurel has come to Oak Ridge, Tennessee for the summer to spend time with her aunt Maybelle and to learn more about the secret history of Oak Ridge. Maybelle worked at the K-25 factory during World War II, but she refuses to talk about that time, even though people talk about it now in the 1979, and Laurel's finding out about it from neighbor and other people that worked at the factory and stuff, but Maybelle refuses to. As we dig into the story, we find out more about why Maybelle is so hesitant to talk about it. I was so invested in this story. Now, I will say, I visited the K-25 museum in Oak Ridge, Tennessee in September. And so that was fresh in my mind. So then when I read this book, what Maybelle was experiencing and seeing, it was it just came alive for me because I'd seen all these pictures and stuff. I actually bought this book in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. So yeah. So I have a special connection with this right now because of that. But I think either way, I really enjoy Michelle Shocklee's writing style, and she just pulls me into the story. I liked the characters. So I think even if I didn't have that special connection and memory, I think I would have really enjoyed the story without it. But yeah, I highly recommend this one. Okay, then I read Hazardous Holiday by Liz Johnson. This is book 5 of the Men of Valor series. It is a love-inspired suspense book, so it is a romantic suspense. It is set in San Diego, California, and we are following Zach and Krista. And Krista is a single mom to a 6-year-old boy, Cody, who has a heart condition. This ends up being a marriage of convenience story, and I did not know that going in. I was so excited when I read that in the very first line of the book that we should get married. I was like, wait, what? So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and just watching the two of them grow to trust each other and fall in love with each other. Because neither one thought they could after Krista loses her husband. She's like, I can't ever love anybody else again. And then she ends up finding a second love. I just really liked this story, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up the novella Worth the Wait by Karen Witemeyer. So this is part of the Ladies of Harper's Station. I think it's novella 1.5, so it's between books 1 and book 2. And we are following Ben, who is the freighter. He freights goods from the larger town of Seymour, I think that's what it's called, to Harper Station. And then we meet Tori, who is the store operator in Harper Station. So the two of them have gotten to know each other and worked together through their jobs and gotten to know each other. Tori is a single mother, and we don't really know from book 1 what Tori's story is. But in book 2, I knew that the two of them had gotten together because I'd read book 2 first, which was Heart on the Line. But how did they get together and what's going on? I just really enjoyed this story, getting to know these characters and the way Ben just befriended and knew that Tori was hesitant around men, and he was just really kind and really great with her son. And a number of times the title came up in the book saying, like, you are worth waiting for. I will wait. Like, I just, so sweet. And there are some really funny moments in the story that just made me laugh. And the other thing about this one is we find out what Tori's background is and kind of the horrible thing that happened and why she's ended up at this women's colony and why she doesn't trust men. And the way that it is revealed, it is horrific, but you don't feel that horror being described. I just really enjoyed the way this story was told. And I read this in one evening during reading sprints, and I was just so invested in this story. It was a novella though, but I gave it 5 stars because I just really enjoyed it. Okay, and then Rilla of Ingleside by Ellen Montgomery. This is book 8 of the Anne of Green Gables series, so now I've completed that series. And Rilla is the youngest Blythe child, and now we are at the start of World War I. We we hear about war being declared and some of the Blythe kids going off to fight in the war. Some of the neighbor children that we've gotten to know through earlier books going off. And so Rilla is 15 turning 15 when this book starts. She's very self-absorbed. Over the course of the story, we see her really grow and mature. And by the end of the story, she is 19, I want to say, at the end of the book. Somewhere around that age. And she has really changed and matured. And I just really, really liked her. And I learned so much about World War I and Canada's history in it through this book. There are sad moments throughout the book due to war going on and not everybody coming home as healthy as when they left, or maybe they don't even come home. There are some really sad moments throughout it, but I gave this book 4 stars because I really was connected to it. And then I read Hearts Under Fire by Cori Lynn. This is a dual timeline set in 1941 and present day. I buddy read this with book lover Amanda, and we both really enjoyed this book. And so we are following Laura in the contemporary timeline, who is an antiques restorer. She takes in a trunk to work on and finds a journal in the trunk from 1941. So then she's reading the journal entries from Ava. And then we get the day-to-day interactions with Ava in the 1941. So now it's the start of World War II, and Ava has people that she cares about that are going over to fight in the war, and kind of what happens on the home front. And I was really connected to the historical timeline at the beginning. It was okay, Laura took me to the historical. Now I just wanted to stay in historical. I wasn't really that connected to Laura. But by the end of the book, I was so connected to Laura. I did not want to put this book down. I gave this 4.5 stars in the end. I just really enjoyed it, and I am really looking forward to whatever book that Cori Lynn has releasing next. And then we returned to Harper Station, and I read the novella The Love Knot. This is by Karen Witemeyer. This is book 2.5 of the Harper Station series, and we are in Texas. I don't think I mentioned that for the other ones. They're all Karen Witemeyer's books are set in Texas. This one is 1895, and we are meeting Claire, or finding more about Claire, who we did meet in Heart on the Line. She is a healer that works with she's kind of a healer apprentice who works with the main healer. And then we find out how she ended up in Harper Station, why she's there. And then she ends up reconnecting with her ex, Peter, and we find out what happened to break them up. And she is from New York originally, I want to say. I think it was. And what brought her to Texas in the first place? And why is Peter here now? Like, what is going on? I did like this. It's a novella, again, and I'm not a huge novella fan to begin with. Some really hit well, and some are just kind of a little bit of a miss for me. And I just don't feel like we got to know these characters enough. I wouldn't say it was a huge miss. I enjoyed it at the time I was reading it, but I would have loved to know more about these characters or spend more time with them. So I gave this book 3 stars. And then the last book I finished was A Royal Wonderland by Liz Johnson. Basically, I was looking for a novella and I needed something with royalty. So I'm like, okay, this works. I could get this on Kindle Unlimited. It's Christmas time. Let's read a Christmas book. So this one is set in Vermont. It is a contemporary romance. We are following Charlie, which is a nickname for Charlotte, who runs the local hardware store after taking it over from her dad. And then we have Andrew, who is a prince who has come kind of to Vermont with his friend in hiding from the paparazzi, the story that was repeated. But Vermont has become, or this town in Vermont has kind of become an anti-reporter town, and they all get pushed out. So this is a safe place for him to be. At first, Charlie doesn't know who he is, and the two end up building up a friendship while Andrew is trying to decorate his friend's house for the local Christmas lights competition. And so as the story goes, they get to know each other. Charlie finds out what's going on, and Andrew finds out why Charlie has stayed in this town when she had bigger dreams, like what is going on. This was a sweet story. It was a fun story. It's a quick little novella. I gave it 3 stars. It really felt Hallmark movie-ish to me, but sometimes you just need those type of stories. So that is what I read this month. So my favorite book overall is The Women of Oak Ridge by Michelle Shocklee. It is a dual timeline historical, and I just really highly recommend you read this one. But I mean, I recommend The Cryptographer's Dilemma, Hard on the Line by Karen Witemeyer, and the novella Worth the Wait by Karen Witemeyer. So those were all my Hearts Under Fire by Cori Lynn. These are all the ones that I gave my highest ratings to for this month. And please tell me what your favorite book was that you read in the month of November. I would love to chat in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.